President Buhari reaffirms Nigeria's willingness to implement decision of tripartite committee on partial border closure.
The Supreme Court has affirmed its decision that Hope Uzodinma was legitimately elected the governor of Imo State.
Supreme Court upholds its judgment on Imo governorship election, sacks Emeka Ihedioha of the PDP again. As concerted efforts mount on effective intervention and management of coronavirus, OPEC Secretary General speaks on cushioning effect of the outbreak on economies of oil exporting nations.
These festivals are the rich ingredients for the enhancement of tourism in Nigeria.
Plus, Arugungu Fishing Festival makes list of official calendar of Nigerian national cultural festivals. Good evening and thanks for joining me on the Network News. I am Ian Ray John. Reading with me tonight from Lagos is Hingino John Adams. Now the news. The federal government has expressed willingness to implement the decision of the tripartite committee set up by Nigeria, Niger and Republic of Benin on the partial closure of the nation's land border as soon as the report is received. President Muhammadu Buhari made this known at an audience with the outgoing president of the ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development, Bashir Maman Ifo, and his successor, Dr. George Nana Donko. State House correspondent Adamu Sambu reports.
President Muhammadu Buhari told his guests that the partial closure of the land borders had given Nigeria a number of insights. He said apart from saving millions of dollars as a result of the ban on food imports, it also became clear that the country has indeed achieved food security. The president explained that the importation of drugs and proliferation of small arms and light weapons threatening the security and stability of the country have also been curtailed. President Buhari thanked the outgoing president of the ECOWAS Bank, Maman Ifo, for the improvements recorded in his 8-year tenure and urged his successor to build on those achievements. The outgoing bank chief informed the president that the ECOWAS Bank had been transformed from a loss-making to profit-making institution. He appreciated ECOWAS member states for their commitment to the bank, which doubled to $1.4 billion. The incoming president, Dr. George Danko, thanked President Buhari and indeed Nigerians for supporting his emergence as the new chief of the financial institution. He gave credit to President Muhammadu Buhari's economic recovery and growth plan, which he said brought about economic stability and food security in the country. Dr. Danko pledged total commitment to partnering with Nigeria towards enhancing socio-economic development in the country and the rest of the West African sub-region. From the State House, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
And staying with the State House, President Muhammadu Buhari has expressed optimism that stronger diplomatic ties with Hellenic Republic as well as Cuba will bolster Nigeria's ongoing effort at diversifying the economy, improving global competitiveness and repositioning the country for a greater future. The president said this while exchanging views with ambassadors of the two countries in Nigeria. State House correspondent Adamu Sambu again reports that the Nigerian leader also engaged the ambassador of Equatorial Guinea.
It was a highly befitting diplomatic welcome for the new envoys on arrival at the forecourt of the Nigerian seat of government, perhaps for the first time in their diplomatic careers. The ambassadors who presented their letters of credence to President Muhammadu Buhari were Monsieur Ioannis Plotas of Hellenic Republic, otherwise called Greece, Clara Margarita Pludo Escandel of the Republic of Cuba, and Francisco Mangue of Equatorial Guinea. Exchanging views with the Hellenic Republic envoy, President Muhammadu Buhari said a long-standing diplomatic and business relations with the country will be strengthened for mutual benefit. He believes that most global challenges will need collective efforts for lasting solutions. Ambassador Plotas takes pride in the business ties between Nigeria and Greece, recalling that about 50,000 Nigerians were employed at some point in the country's history by a flour mills company from his country. He told President Buhari that he will continue to support and project Nigeria across Europe at every opportunity while sharing its expertise in agriculture with institutions and individuals in the country. Talking to the ambassador of Cuba to Nigeria, Clara Escandel, President Buhari said the cultural similarities between both countries should serve as impetus for working together, especially on trade, saying Cuba's efforts at developing medicine and engineering could provide the springboard. President Buhari appreciated the support Nigeria received at international fora from Cuba for many years, promising that the bilateral relations would be strengthened. The Cuban envoy, Clara Escandel, told President Buhari that the history of Cuba will be incomplete without Nigeria and Nigerians. Nigerians, she said, played great roles in the development of our country. She described President Buhari's personal venture, integrity, and voice at the United Nations General Assembly in projecting Nigeria as outstanding. At the ceremony, President Buhari assured the ambassador of Equatorial Guinea, Francisco Mangui, that Nigeria is taking measures towards securing the Gulf of Guinea following his meeting with President Theodore Obiang Nguema Basogo. Ambassador Mangui expressed worry that the challenges of security in the Gulf of Guinea had persisted. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has received in audience a special envoy of President Patrice Talon of the neighboring Benin Republic. Details of their discussions held behind closed doors were not made public. From the State House, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
And on health, the House of Representatives has called for the release of more funds for effective intervention and management of coronavirus, following a motion of urgent public importance by Representative Uyime Idem. House members urged that an emergency National Council of Health meeting be convened to strategize on tackling the virus.
Unfortunately, it has entered the country, and there is nothing we can do than for us to rise to this challenge.
We are worried because we know that the virus does not understand language. The virus does not understand who is a member of House of Reps, neither a governor or senator or president.
We currently have only 3 isolation centers in Nigeria.
The lawmakers commended government for measures so far adopted, but said preventive efforts be extended to rural communities.
In all health workers with measures to be put in place across the states and local governments to curtail the spread of coronavirus disease.
2 weeks suspension of plenary to enable the management of National Assembly put measures in place to take care of the ravaging surge of this coronavirus.
Meanwhile, the leadership of the Senate has met with the Minister of Health, Professor Osagie Hanire, during which he assured that measures have been put in place to avert the spread of coronavirus in Nigeria.
And we reviewed our strategy at a very robust discussion. We worked on fallback positions. In case one isolation center is full, what do we do? So we back up with our teaching hospitals. They must be in a position to clear a ward.
I imagine that we should have the standards set by the Federal Ministry of Health or the Center for Disease Control, rather than states just doing whatever they think they should do.
The minister was accompanied by his state counterpart and officials of the National Center for Disease Control, who explained that there has been stringent screening at airports, tracking of contacts with the index and provision of isolation centers. And still on coronavirus, the Chinese national who arrived at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport Monday aboard Ethiopian airline and displayed symptoms of coronavirus has tested negative. This information came on the heels of a press briefing held in Lagos, where the Commissioner for Health, Professor Akin Abayomi, announced that so far only 1 index case of COVID-19 has been identified, while 41 persons on board the aircraft that conveyed the index case have been identified and are currently under watch. Joy Ken Agbakweya has details.
For 5 days now, the index patient of coronavirus has been undergoing management in isolation at the mainland hospital Yaba, and the Lagos State Commissioner for Health, Professor Akin Abayomi, says his condition is mild to moderate with no tendency of major complications.
His breathing is fine. He has a slight cough, but he's comfortable. He's in one of our newly refurbished isolation units. We will keep him there until our tests show that he's no longer secreting the virus. If we show that the viral presence is gone down to 0, then we wait another few days, because sometimes it can go down to 0 and come up again. As long as you're secreting the virus, you can transmit it. So we just want to make sure that when we release him, that he's truly negative and not contagious.
Professor Abayomi also disclosed that of the 159 persons aboard the aircraft, 35 are unreachable due to provision of wrong information, while the rest have since returned to their base outside Nigeria, and the World Health Organization has been notified. The hotel the patient visited on arrival has been decontaminated, with 6 of its staff on self-isolation and under close observation by health officials.
If you're flying into this country from anywhere in the world, it is in the interest of public safety, and it is in your interest that you give us the right information. We're not trying to delay you anywhere, but if you fall sick, it's important that we're there to help you. And it's also important that you're not in a position to spread the infection to other people.
The Lagos State government is appealing to Nigerians to maintain personal and environmental hygiene at all times and use the emergency numbers in case of any corona-like symptoms. In Lagos, Joy Ken Abakbuya, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the World Health Organization has commended the government of Ogun State for speedily responding to the first case of coronavirus in the state. The head of African Regional Office, WHO, Professor Bola Olayinka, who gave the commendation during a visit to the Governor, Dapo Abiodun in Abeokuta, said the organization is working with the Nigeria Center for Disease Control to provide support on how to control the spread. Details with Lukman Adefeso.
Coronavirus has proliferated around the globe over the past week. Current statistics indicate that about 57 countries, including Nigeria, are now trying to salvage its outbreak. Nigerians' alarm over potential global pandemic informed the visit by the World Health Organization and National Center for Disease Control, NCDC, to Ogun State to brief the governor on the technical guidelines on how to control coronavirus.
The key thing is rapid containment. What do I mean by containment? Being able to have a high level of index of suspicion to know that this might be a suspected case, to isolate that patient while other things are happening, and I think Ogun State did well in this.
The governor, Prince Dapo Abiodun, maintained that the 40 contacts established currently in isolation centers have not shown any symptoms of coronavirus.
I'm sure you're aware that we set up emergency telephone lines that our epidemiologists will be answering so that people can call. One of the things we realize is that we must step up this advocacy.
People are therefore enjoined not to panic, but maintain personal hygiene and visit government-owned hospital rather than engage in self-medication.
And in Ekiti State, a 40-member task force to explore practicable measures for prevention and control of coronavirus has been inaugurated. The state governor, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, who chaired the committee, said the decision became imperative towards enlightening the public on government's preparedness to prevent the disease in the state. Kola Adebobuyi reports.
The state government believes it is essentially important to educate people on the symptoms of coronavirus, what to do when detected, and how to live a healthy and hygiene life to prevent contact with the disease. Governor Kayode Fayemi said there should be no need for panic in Ekiti State, as measures have been set in motion to respond adequately to the scourge, with activation of health facilities and infrastructure to manage the infection. This, he said, requires the active engagement of every stakeholders and residents of the state, hence the composition of the 40-man task force to help in preventing and managing the disease in the state.
In line with the National Center for Disease Control (NCDC) directive, we have designated an isolation center in the state for quarantine or treatment if necessary. As a people and government, we must continuously work on the sustenance of a healthy and hygienic lifestyle.
High point of the event was the demonstration of modern health worker by medical experts with challenge to people to call emergency number 112 to report any cases of the disease. In Ado-Ekiti, Kola Adebabuyi, NT News.
Meanwhile, the Minister of Environment, Mohammed Mahmoud Abubakar, says the federal government will deploy health workers and volunteers to Nigeria's frontiers to beef up surveillance as part of measures to contain spread of COVID-19. On Ngiye, Fineface reports.
In keeping with the recommendation of World Health Organization that response to the novel COVID-19 should be non-pharmaceutical based, Minister of Environment Mohammed Mahmoud Abubakar says the federal government is adopting a containment strategy that will limit contacts with people that may be affected by the virus. Elements of the strategy include temperature monitoring, hand washing and mobilization protocols, while a large pool of environmental health workers will be deployed to high-risk areas for surveillance. In addition, the Ministry of Environment shall undertake environmental decontamination and disinfection in high-exposure areas with a view to killing the enveloped viruses.
I would like to urge Ministry of Environment at the state level to be proactive and key into the preparedness in their respective states. That way, the containment of the coronavirus will not only be multi-sectoral, but also easier and more effective. I hereby charge environmental health officers in states and local government to engage butchers to ensure they do not handle, slaughter, dress, sell, and prepare meat originating from wild animals or sick livestock which have died from unknown causes.
As precautionary measure, the Minister of Environment emphasized caution in handling raw meat, regular hand washing and healthy lifestyles among Nigerians to avoid contacting the virus. In Abuja, Onengiye Fineface, NTA News.
And not done with coronavirus yet. Nigeria's 2020 budget is set to be one of the major casualties of the ravaging coronavirus as fears of a major economic slump sent oil prices to their lowest in more than a year. The budget, which was based on the projection of oil production of 2.18 million barrels per day, with an oil price benchmark of $57 per barrel, dropped to about $49 over the weekend. We were now joined by Skype, the Secretary General of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, Dr. Mohammed Sanusi Barakindo, to speak more on this. Good evening, sir, and thanks for joining us live on NTA Network News tonight.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
All right, so we'll begin. Since the outbreak of the novel coronavirus, the global oil market has been one of its major targets. Why is this so, and what is OPEC's position?
We are witnessing at the moment one of the worst demand cycles in oil. Since the outbreak of the COVID-19, you notice that demand for oil in most of the major consuming nations in on a downward spiral. As a result of that, prices also took dive. As a matter of the fall in the first quarter of the year is projected to be probably the worst in history. We have seen demand contracting by as much as 3.8 million barrels a day. The forecast for the second quarter of the year is not looking bright as well. As a result of that, it started consolidations, nations, countries, as well as members of the cooperation, in particular those outside of OPEC, in order to have a consensus on a common page on how to overcome this objective.
Okay, now some OPEC member countries basically depend on revenue from the sale of crude oil for their national budget. Nigeria is a good example for now. What's OPEC's plan to cushion the effect of falling oil prices?
All countries, and as a matter of fact, all 24 producing countries in the non-OPEC declaration of operation are in both. We are all countries that are heavily dependent on the export of petroleum and therefore are vulnerable to this downturn. There is a renewed commitment by all the participating countries in this alliance between OPEC and non-OPEC to come to common position this week when we convene here in Vienna to take very decisive and proactive measures that mitigate against the continuity of this slump.
All right, thank you so much for your response to our questions. That was Dr. Mohammed Sanusi Barkindo speaking to us on the effect of coronavirus. We sincerely apologize for the not too good audio quality there. Still the network news up ahead. Supreme Court puts to rest Imo governorship tussles and thrones Hope Uzodinma as governor. Details after the break.
COVID-19 transmission is mostly through droplets from sneezing and saliva. The most effective way to protect yourself from the virus is to practice good personal hygiene. Wash hands with soap under running water or use an alcohol-based sanitizer if water is not available. Maintain at least 2 meters distance between yourself and anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Cover your mouth and nose with your elbow or tissue when you cough or sneeze. Dispose of the used tissue immediately. If you have traveled recently to a country with COVID-19 outbreak in the last 14 days and you have a fever, cough, or breathing difficulty, call NCDC toll-free numbers before going to the hospital. This message is from the National Orientation Agency.
Good to have you back. It is the third day of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria holding in Abuja. As usual, critical social issues bordering on the development of the country such as peace and security, unity, poverty and the role of the church formed the major focus. The theme of the conference is the Word of God, a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. State House correspondent Jide Onifade reports.
Clergies at the event, which includes the Archbishop of Abuja, Ignatius Kaigama, stressed on the need for Nigerians to have cordial relationship with God and a peaceful coexistence among one another. 20 is a note which defeat evil and extremism. As he says, there's the need to also work together to eradicate poverty, diseases, unnecessary deaths, and other issues affecting the people.
Millions are displaced and we don't seem to care. Something is wrong. We haven't yet cultivated that spirit of patriotism, that spirit of oneness. We may declare we are one Nigeria, but many things divide us. Ethnic interests, political interests, and worst of all, religious interests. Something must be done to repair the damage that has been done.
The Archbishop observes that so much is happening, calling for more patriotic Nigerians to come forth and help address these issues. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo was among dignitaries that graced the opening mass of the first 2020 plenary meeting and a dinner at the end of the second day. His presence was described as a demonstration of his love and solidarity at all times with Nigerians, including the church.
When you are with us like this and we are suffering, we feel we are together. But when there is a gap, we feel there is an insensitivity. We need to have access to our leaders. We need to have access to the president, to the vice president, to the ministers, they need to be closer to the people that elected them.
Archbishop Kagame said the habit of condemning political leaders and people in positions of authority was harmful to society and inimical to its growth. He advised the people to always pray for those in position of power and the country. The conference is scheduled to end on Thursday this week. In Abuja, Jide Onifade, NT News.
And from the church, we head to the court, where the Supreme Court, in a majority decision of 6 against 7, has reaffirmed its previous judgment, which declared Hope Uzodimma of the All Progressives Congress, APC, winner of the March 9, 2019 Imo governorship election. The Supreme Court held that it lacked powers to sit on appeal over the January 14 judgment of the court, which nullified the election of former governor of Imo State, Emeka Ihedioha. Viera Chumuba has details of that judgment and now reports.
The 7-man panel of justices of the Supreme Court was led by Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Ibrahim Tanko Muhammad. The majority judgment delivered by Justice Olukayode Areowola held that the application by the former governor of Imo State, Emeka Ihedioha, asking the court to set aside his judgment on grounds of nullity amounts to an invitation to the court. The court specifically held that by virtue of Section 235 of the 1999 Constitution, its decision is final on any judgment based on merit and shall not be reviewed once delivered under any guise, except where there are clerical errors. The court also stated that under Order 8 through 16 of the Supreme Court Act, the court cannot alter any judgment and that such judgment, once delivered on merit, remains forever. The court therefore dismissed the application for lack of merit, want of jurisdiction and competence.
The Supreme Court has affirmed its decision that Hope Uzodimma was legitimately elected the governor of Imo State.
We have 6-1. It shows that each justice has his independent mind to determine each issue brought before the court.
What they were asking for was for the Supreme Court to sit against its own decision. Thank God they resisted that.
However, in a dissenting judgment, Justice Sentus Nweze set aside the 14th general judgment of the court that removed Ihedioha from office as a nullity and in bad faith. He said the decision of the court will continue to haunt electoral jurisprudence for a long time. Under the doctrine of stare decisis, the Supreme Court is bound by its previous decisions. This is what the court has just reaffirmed by its majority decision of 6 against 1. And it also goes to show that the Supreme Court does not sit on appeal over its decisions. In Abuja, Viera Chumuba, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Adams Oshiomhole, has described the ruling by the Supreme Court on the Imo State governorship tussle as refreshing and predictable. Mr. Oshiomhole gave his reaction to the judgment while speaking to State House correspondents after an audience with the president.
What the Supreme Court has done today for me is just to reaffirm that they are supreme and whatever they did last time was on the basis of what was before them. They did not make mistake. There are no gaps, there are no ambiguity, and therefore there was no basis to reapproach them to sit on appeal in their own judgment. Of course, as a party chairman, and I believe for every APC member and well-wishers, and indeed all Democrats, and all those who believe in the rule of law, who believe that imperfect as the Supreme Court can be, they remain supreme. We are happy, and we thank God that it has the whole litigation process has come to an end, because like Justice Ogi said in that last judgment, he said there has to be an end to litigation, and I cannot agree more, so that the people of Imo State can relax, sit back, and work with their governor and ensure that all hands are on deck to fill up the gaps and ensure that Imo people witness sustainable growth and development and for the good of all.
Meanwhile, the People's Democratic Party says the verdict of the Supreme Court on the review of its judgment on the Imo State governorship election is unacceptable to it and places a huge burden on the court and the Lord Justices. A statement from the party's National Publicity Secretary, Kola Olobodiyan, explains that the PDP, however, notes that in the face of what it described as a sad verdict, Justice Chima Nweze's judgment presents a glimpse of hope for the nation's judiciary. And in other news, the Senate is considering a bill that seeks to repeal the Nuclear Safety and Radiation Protection Act number 19 of 1995 and reenact the Nuclear Safety, Security and Safeguards Act. The bill, which has passed second reading, seeks to re-establish the Nigerian Nuclear Regulatory Authority and introduce the production of electricity through nuclear energy. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Nkwo reports.
It was the first plenary of the week, and the first bill on the other paper for consideration was the bill that seeks to move Nigeria away from a 25-year-old law on Nigeria's Nuclear Safety and Radiation Protection Act. It basically seeks to ensure adequate safety and protection of Nigeria's nuclear activities and to utilize it for electricity generation and for tackling security challenges. Deputy Leader of the Senate, Senator Ajayi Borofis, sponsored the bill.
This bill, when passed, will strengthen the overall Nigerian security mechanism using the nation's nuclear assets. It will also ensure that the gains on investments so far made by Nigeria on the nuclear sector are optimally harnessed.
We will suggest that the chairman of the board be Mr. President himself, and also anything importation or everything nuclear related must have the approval of Mr. President through the office of the National Security Advisor.
Second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Senate Committee on Petroleum Upstream and Science and Technology to report back within 4 weeks.
That bill gave way for the second reading of the Nigerian Army University Bill Establishment Bill, sponsored by Senator Ali Ndume. Thereafter, President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, granted audience to the newly inaugurated chairman and members of the National Assembly Service Commission, during which the commission promised to improve on the workforce of the National Assembly staff. From the National Assembly, Ignatius Nkwo, NTA News.
The House of Representatives says casualization of workers by multinational companies based in Nigeria should not be allowed to continue as it is exploitative. The House is therefore set to criminalize casualization of workers who have been engaged beyond 6 months. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali reports.
A bill to that effect, sponsored by Representative Wale Raji, also seeks to eliminate outsourcing of employees in core areas of operation.
They have taken advantage of lacuna in the Labour Act.
In the oil sector, the cancellation there is more than the employed staff.
They will put in 20 years, 10 years, 15 years. Then after some time, they'll be laid off without any benefits.
The bill went through second reading and was referred to House Committee on Labour for further legislative action. Plenary also adopted a motion on the need for the Ecological Fund Office to urgently embark on erosion control in Imo State, as moved by Representative Ugonna Uzurigbo, and the motion from Representative Armayau Abdul Qadir on the need to address erosion in parts of Katsina State in view of the economic losses suffered by the people who are also faced with security challenge.
The damages being caused to the soil surface in the communities have made it extremely difficult for the dwellers in those communities to engage in farming.
Meanwhile, House members have called on authorities to invest on pharmaceutical research to bring to an end the country's dependence on imported drugs to avoid exploitation and risks associated with outsourcing from foreign firms, as moved by Representative Ida Husa. From the National Assembly, Lami Ali, NTA News.
And away from the National Assembly now, the federal government has listed Argungu International Fishing Festival on the calendar of Nigerian festivals to be published soon. Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed disclosed this at a press conference to herald the 2020 Argungu Fishing Festival in Abuja. Anthony Forson brings us details.
This cultural display is a tip of the iceberg if a roll call of activities lined up for the Argungu International Fishing Festival is to be taken. It is in line with this that the Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed announced how important the festival is to the federal government, especially in its quest to diversify the economy through the promotion of the creative industry.
these festivals are the rich ingredients for the enhancement of tourism in Nigeria. And they are part of the creative industry, which is one of the areas the federal government relies on for the diversification of the economy away from oil.
The minister said his ministry has made it a priority to raise the visibility of such festivals by attending as many as possible and as all roads lead to Argungu. Lai Mohammed assured that the event will be given massive publicity.
We will be using the new and traditional media to put the 2020 Argungu International Fishing and Cultural Festival on the national and international map. The festival deserves no less.
Deputy Governor of Kebbi State, Samala Yombi, explained that the festival was rested on account of insecurity, but with the return of normalcy, it has become necessary to revive it as it is part of the people's heritage, which must not be allowed to go extinct.
A number of entertaining events have been added to the cultural festival to give it a national and international outlook.
The Director General, National Automotive Design and Development Council, Jelani Aliu, expressed satisfaction that the festival has as one of its components motor racing, a platform that will afford cars assembled in Nigeria to come on board to test their width and capacity.
To us, NADDC, this would allow us opportunity to show our commitment to moving this industry forward, to show that many Nigerians have been part of this industry and that are making a valuable contribution to the society.
Emir of Argungu, while expressing gratitude for the recognition and support from the federal government in promoting the cultural heritage of the people, conferred on the Minister of Information and Culture the traditional title of Kakakin Kebbi, which means the cultural ambassador of Kebbi. In Abuja, Anthony Forson, NTA News.
Sadly, it is now official. Nigeria is #1 in open defecation in the world. And to turn the tide now, the Ministry of Water Resources requires more purposeful collective action. That is why the Minister, Suleiman Adamu, wants the media to take ownership of the implementation of the Water, Sanitation and Hygiene WASH as he met with news executives in the electronic media in Abuja. Musbao Dan Wahab reports.
The unwanted has become a reality. Now, how to shed the shameful toga of being the first in open defecation is a critical national assignment for the Federal Ministry of Water Resources. Nigeria's government has seen it coming, and President Muhammadu Buhari has followed up the declaration of state of emergency on the sector with the Executive Order 9 to give more impetus to various policies and programs. But it is an assignment that is said to require a more aggressive campaign, as 20 of the 774 LGAs are yet open defecation free.
Partnership, collaboration and advocacy with all stakeholders is required to ensure that Nigeria attains open defecation-free status by the target year of 2025.
Already on board, corporate bodies under the organized private sector in WASH say they have initiated various measures in the quest for an open defecation-free Nigeria.
In this regard, it is my priority to ensure that we use our local capacity and create an effective sanitation value chain.
And now, the media is not only to tell the news, but equally become advocates for the WASH sector, most importantly to end open defecation by 2025. In Abuja, Musbao and Wahab, NT News.
And on security, the critical role of media in national security and development is again in the front burner at the National Defense College, where participants of Course 28 are undergoing a one-year higher defense and security study. The Director General of the Nigerian Television Authority gave his perspectives on media management and national security. Doing Dia reports.
The role of mass media messages during and after the Second World War has continued to be a reference point for security coverage, with the mass media serving as the watchdog of the society and agenda setter. Its relevance on matters of national security is said to be paramount. However, there still exists a thin line of understanding between the media and security managers, which is said to often lead to misconception, speculations, fake and unverified news dissemination.
Both are watching over the country. The military security agencies keeping the country as one, ensuring lives and property are protected, while the media is considered to be the watchdog of the society.
A clear definition of national security policy, capacity building and positive synergy were areas that the Speaker and participants say must be given attention for national security.
For instance, the media need to have a strategy on this war against terror, a complementary strategy that will work in line with the security agencies.
With thorough analysis on the role of the media in national security, the guest lecturer made the case for the adoption of policy documents on smarter approach to information dissemination in the country. From the National Defense College, Abuja, Doing Dia, NT News.
Let's now join Hingino in Lagos for more reports.
Thank you, Ian Ray, and welcome to Lagos. A 3-day retreat to review the National Labour Bill is ongoing in Lagos. The meeting, declared open by the Minister of Labour and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, seeks to collectively arrive at a consensus with key players and social partners before presentation to the National Assembly. Paul Omukago has details.
In this hall are government officials, employers of labour, employees and labour leaders. This retreat affords them the opportunity of taking a common position beneficial to all parties. Specifically, the bills for review are the Occupational Safety and Health Bills, the Labour Standards Bills, the Labour Institution Bills, Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund Act 2010, and the Collective Labour Relations Bill. Uppermost in the minds of government and labour experts are the need for industrial harmony, peace and social security.
The bills to be developed for enactment will promote rights at work, encourage decent employment opportunities for women and men in conditions of freedom, equity, security, human dignity, and enhance even social protection for Nigerian workers.
The review of these bills and subsequent enactment into law by the National Assembly will bring sanity to our workplaces.
President Nigerian Labour Congress, Ayuba Waba, and East Trade Union Congress counterpart say Labour is united and will make meaningful contributions towards expunging archaic labour laws. The workshop moved into technical session after the opening, with Minister of State, Labour and Employment, Festus Keyamo, presiding. In Lagos, Paul Omukago, NT News.
That's it from here. Network News continues in Abuja after this break.
Welcome back. Nigeria is collaborating with the International Labour Organization, ILO, and International Telecommunications Union, ITU, to develop a digital skills module that will prepare Nigerian youth for the evolving world digital economy. Ministers of Labour, Youth and Sports Development and that of Communications and Digital Economy present Nigeria's position ahead of the upcoming Rwanda regional meeting. Emmanuel Ayimiru reports.
With the development of digital economy across the world, the ITU and ILO are leading the digital skill thematic priority of decent jobs for African youth.
We are providing skills for numeric thinking, design thinking, so that anything that comes, your mind will shape around that and you pick up and run.
The undertaking with development partners like the World Bank, like the African Development Bank, and other key institutions that have expressed an interest to collaborate with us.
By the end of 2020, the world economy is expected to have become fully digitized. Even as the global trade moves, Nigeria desires a coach furnished with the need for her youth population.
Yes, there are more than 200 digital tools that can be created. But then, What are the tools that are relevant for our society?
I think the opportunities we have in entrepreneurship are much, much higher than what is available in government. And that is why I think this initiative is highly commendable.
It's part of the recommendation of the Presidential Economic Advisory Council to Mr. President that there's a lot of working in silos. So we are now harmonizing everything to work in synergy.
Nigeria is setting up a tax team to include Women Affairs Ministry for the development of a harmonized module that will be of benefit to all. Emmanuel Ayimiro, NTA News.
President, Alumni Association of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, ANI, has commended the Federal Road Safety Corps for its robust deployment of information technology, aiding in the repositioning of the Corps and its operation across the country. This was made known during a visit by the ANI ESCOs to the FRSC headquarters in Abuja. Oyeyemi Ajayi has details.
Over time, the Federal Road Safety Corps has employed the use of information technology in effectively carrying out its responsibilities in order to rid the country's highways of reckless road crashes. To many, this has yielded more results in achieving the 0% road crashes in the country, in line with the United Nations Decade of Action Against Crashes. This visit by the Alumni Association of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies is to encourage the Corps not to rest on its oars in sanitizing the highways from crashes and maintaining decorum while driving.
Just last month we took decision now to have our operations in all the 774 governments except the line areas. But once we can cover, so hopefully before the end of this month now, we commence deployment of personnel.
No country, no service can work without technology. We're in the 21st century and the 4th industrial revolution, so you expect to see technology at work, and I've seen technology at work.
However, the Central Business District Unit Command of the Corps is to conduct free vehicle safety check from 4th to 7th of March 2020. In Abuja, Oyeyemi Ajayi, NTA News.
We now pause for some messages. Network News returns in a bit.
On Tuesday Live this week, proactive measures in curtailing the first case of COVID-19 in Nigeria, plus sustaining the conversation on increasing electricity tariff and other issues with those who should know. Tuesday Live at 10:30 p.m. will be incisive. Don't miss it.
Man blossoms forth like a flower and is cut down. He fleets also as a shadow, but continues not. It is with deepest sorrow and humble acceptance of God's will we announce the passing on to glory of our dearly beloved Sir Lucky Omolua, who died on February 18, 2020, aged 66 years. Funeral programs: Thursday, 5th March 2020, service of songs and night of tribute. Venue: the Holy Trinity Catholic Church, Aguin Ronsiwe, Maitama, Abuja. Time: 5 p.m. Friday, 6th March 2020. Commendation and Memorial Service. Venue: the proposed Cathedral of the 12 Apostles, Papal's Ground, Kubwa, Abuja. Time: 11 a.m. Reception follows at the International Conference Center, Garki, Abuja. Sir Lucky will be forever remembered for his extremely kind and generous heart. He is survived by his wife, children, and grandchildren. The family. Announcer.
Thanks for staying. Now talking sports. Action begins in 6th Kaduna State Sports Festival. Tamara Ibiwe has more.